Press the bell icon and never miss an update from ETAuto.
As we talk about automobile industry, we are now, the buzzword is electrification and clean energy vehicles. And what happens to the backroom of the automobile industry, which has been so far with the ICE engine, internal combustion engine. So we have here with us Director General of Auto Component Manufacturers Association, Mr. Vinnie Mehta, to talk about the transition, how they are ready to deal with the challenge. Welcome to ETAuto.
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank you,
Mehta.
Nabil. Yeah, thank you.
So the key word for automotive industry is transition, and
Yes.
when we talk about transition, is the main challenge going to be the engine that
Yes.
we are going to
The engine and transmission, yes.
done away with.
Yes.
So we also talk about that with electrification, the component will come down to merely 1 or 2%.
Yes.
How your sector is readying for this change?
Yes. So, Nabil, I think first of all, we must understand that the entire automotive industry completely stands with the government, by the government, and empathizes on the fact that, we need to address the challenge of imports of fossil fuels. That's one of the biggest concerns for the government, and also the very significant pollution in Indian cities today. So, we definitely need to find a solution to it, okay? And while electric mobility probably is being thought about as one of the solutions, when you look at the electric mobility, you see, when we look at 10 years from now, currently the best of the estimates suggest that just about, say, 30% or by a stretch 40% of the industry would be electric, okay? And as you heard today in SIAM sessions, they're talking about, say, 9 million units of cars in 2030, okay? So even if, say, 30% of vehicles are electric, 60% is 6 million, which is double the size of the current car sales today, right? So I think one need not needlessly be panicking or being afraid. There are two distinct opportunities that are emerging for the entire automotive industry. One is the conventional industry, which is going to be doubling, and that's going to be very sizable. We are world number 3 today. We are world number 4 today. Next 2 to 3 years, we'll be world number 3. From 4 to 3, that's a jump that we're going to be making. So I think that's a big opportunity not to be lost sight of. And of course, as an industry, we have absolutely now prepared ourselves to be a BS6 compliant industry. We are getting aggressively compliant on all the other regulations. So this is one. The other is the electric part of it. And right now, the challenge on the electric part is that there is no definite roadmap. The component industry manufactures to the plan that a vehicle manufacturer, in fact, to the schedule eventually that the vehicle manufacturer gives to his supplier. Now, the vehicle manufacturer also then needs to know how much is he going to manufacture, and without a definite roadmap from the government, and what is the roadmap for electric, it's going to be very difficult.
So when we talk about the current situation, you
Yes.
mentioned about BS6 also.
Yes.
So if we talk about BS6 and electrification,
Yes.
so how your members are trying to
Yes.
fix, because it's a huge investment that is going to
So
come in a very
that's the
short
other
time.
ask that we have of the government is that, you see, currently there is far too much of changes that are happening. You have transition from BS4 to BS6 that we just discussed. The government is talking about alternate fuels, biofuels. We're talking about ethanol, methanol. We're talking about so many regulations. We're talking about safety regulations, plethora of them. We're talking about emission regulation. The government is talking about after the BS6 implementation, we are going into RDE. We are talking about coming up with the CAFE norms. So what we want from the government is that, look, please give us a definite roadmap. with timelines, and it's timelines not tomorrow, right? We need to, I really congratulate and I really am appreciative of this big challenge that the industry has taken, whereas Europe took 12 years to move from BS4 to BS6. We are doing it in 3 years time.
So do you think these kind of situation that going everywhere, sometimes we are talking about biofuel, we are talking about electrification, we are talking about jumping to BS6, do you think some kind of cautionary action taking place at your membership when it comes to investment, or is there a tilt toward any particular fuel option or technology option where the investments are going to go?
Nabil, I see what happens is right now the situation is a little bit fuzzy. Okay, if if the industry and the government sat together and made a 10-year roadmap, that would be the best thing that can happen. That allows people to understand their strengths and move ahead accordingly. If I am, say, an engine guy, if I think my strengths are there to experiment with alternate fuels, I go ahead and do it. If I don't, then I stick to the convention. Okay, so the issue is a definitiveness that is required. We are not saying that we should not be, and the common man should not be limited to choices that are offered. So therefore the ideal situation should be that there is a technology agnostic roadmap that comes by for the industry, and the market, it's really the total cost of ownership that will eventually decide what actually survives and what does not. So allow the market forces to come in and play. That's the best situation that can happen.
You just put an estimated number that we'll have 9 million
passenger
vehicles. So your association, I must say. So even there, we see a lot of technological shift happening towards connected, towards more electric going there, not only battery or fully electric, but a lot of electrical activity happening in those vehicles. But do you think Indian manufacturers or component manufacturers, which were largely working on the basis of technical alliances, joint ventures, but now the opportunity has opened up for even foreign companies to come and put a setup easily. So how is this going to impact your members? Are they worried, or how are they working? What are their R&D activities?
I think worrying is a good thing. If you worry, then you put your act together, put your house together, and say from a vehicle manufacturer's perspective, they're absolutely right. We just say that, look, either you deliver or we import. Right, so it's for the component manufacturer to then start thinking in those directions. So worrying is a good thing to happen. Again, what I'm saying is that,
do you think that worry is reflecting in terms of investment in technology development and R&D? You were expecting the government to enhance weighted reduction on R&D to 200%, but it has remained at 150%. How the industry is reacting to that, because it's quite a tough situation if we look at from both the sides.
See, when we talked about reinstating the 200% weighted deduction, that is with the intent of some kind of an incentive coming in from the government to encourage R&D. Okay, now either the government does that, or it gives us some other alternative that can encourage R&D. I think there is no dispute on the fact that we need homegrown technologies, because we are far too much becoming dependent on imports for technologies. There's a huge amount of drain that's happening on the royalties, right? A huge amount of, for some of the smaller companies, their entire profit margin gets wiped out in paying the royalty. So there's a huge and an important case for doing homegrown R&D and technology. So what we've been asking the government is to incentivize R&D in whatever form they think is correct. We also are talking to the government to have a fund for technology acquisition and development, because component industry is largely a small and medium enterprise industry, and they do not have that kind of resources or the bandwidth to invest in R&D, so either there should be interest subvention on the R&D that they do, or there's some kind of a grant that the government makes available. So again, it's a very and investing in R&D is a precursor to Make in India, so Make in India will stumble if you do not make technologies at home.
US sanction on Iran, and Iran has been one of the key markets for you in terms of aftermarkets. So how are you dealing with that because of the currency problem that would have come up?
Yes. So it's something very unfortunate that has happened. Well, again, the entire globe is going through a lot of challenges, and this is one of them that we have, is that with the US sanctions on Iran, businessmen are now even afraid to travel to Iran, because if you have a passport that has an Iranian stamp, you have problems if you are a US, you have a business connection to the US. So that is something extremely sort of disturbing in a sense. Probably ACMA, ACMA has had to cancel its participation in one of the exhibition, which is a premier exhibition, and we just hope good sense will prevail in the world and will allow more trade to happen.
So I think the trade has also come down drastically between India and Iran when it comes to auto component. Looking at all this happening at the backdrop of all these challenges, how do you see the component industry performing this financial year? What kind of growth, what kind of investment, what kind of job creation do you expect?
I think these are good times for the entire automotive industry. Last year was one of the best performances that we had in the auto component sector. Also, the times are, well, I would say that in a way benign, because it is a run up to the elections. There will be a lot of government spending happening for rural areas, so you expect better sales from the tractor industry. Rural sales also, rural investment also help two-wheeler industry. That apart, the monsoons have been very bountiful, and also the government is significantly investing in infrastructure development that augurs well for the commercial vehicle industry, and a robust economy helps the car industry per se. So I guess we are in good times. Also,
what kind of growth expectation, if you could put a range or a number to it?
I don't have a number to put to, but I think 15% plus is something that should be very comfortable, because last year was 18%, and I don't see any reason why we should not be growing 15%. So we are very proud that the component industry grows double the national GDP.
Thank you, Vinnie, for talking to ETAuto. I hope same growth that comes up to you in this year. Thank you.